Hi everyone! Today, I'm here with a brand new video, and I can't wait to share this with you. Perhaps this has made you feel strange before. The doorbell rings. Someone wants to come in, pay a visit, have a conversation. But inside, you feel a discomfort, an inner resistance, a deep urge to simply say no. You don't hate people, and you're not angry at the world. But to be honest, you simply don't enjoy having visitors. You prefer your quiet home, your undisturbed routine, your preserved energy. If this sounds familiar, take a deep breath, because in this video, we're going to talk about something that hardly anyone openly admits: the real, intimate, and often misunderstood discomfort of people who cannot bear it when someone enters their personal space. And no, you are neither rude nor antisocial. According to Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, this behavior may point to something much deeper within your nature. Today, I'll show you 6 insights from Jung that explain why some people simply don't like having visitors, and why that is not only natural, but could also be a sign of a valuable inner psychological process. So stay with us until the end. Because if you've ever felt guilty for wanting to be alone, you may realize today that this has much more to do with your psychological development than with a character flaw. And before we dive into Jung's insights, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. Do you also feel uncomfortable when someone suddenly shows up at your door unannounced? I'd really like to know if you see yourself in this. Have you ever wondered why some people thrive during social gatherings, parties, and home visits, while you, on the other hand, feel drained just at the thought of having guests? Or maybe you enjoy talking, you have good relationships, but as soon as someone wants to enter your home, something in you recoils. It's as if the mere presence of another person exhausts your energy, and there's an explanation for that. Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists of the 20th century, was the first to popularize 2 now widely known terms: introverted and extroverted. But don't be mistaken, this isn't just about shyness or sociability. Jung wasn't talking about social behavior, but about the movement of psychic energy. The extrovert directs their energy outward. They are nourished by contact and external stimulation. The outside world gives them strength. The introvert, on the other hand, functions almost in the opposite way. They recharge from within. Their source of energy is silence, introspection, solitude. When they are overly exposed to the external, long conversations, unexpected visitors, noise, or interruptions, their mind begins to shut down, not out of arrogance, but out of psychological necessity. And this is the key point. Not liking to receive visitors is not a social deficit. It is a direct expression of how your energy is structured. If you are more introverted, and many people are without even realizing it, then your home is not just a physical place, but a sacred space, a cocoon, a place where your energy reorganizes, where your psyche finds balance. And when someone enters that space, even with the best of intentions, they touch invisible threads you've been sorting out all day. The mere presence of the other person forces you to activate your persona, your social mask, and in doing so, you move away from your true self. And you know what? That is deeply exhausting. Jung said that introversion is not a conscious choice, but a disposition of the soul. So, when you try to go against this inner impulse, it only leads to more conflict and exhaustion. Some might say, "Oh, they're so reserved. They just don't like company." But what many don't see is this. What seems like coldness or disinterest is often just self-peer protection, a psychological shield, an invisible boundary erected by the unconscious to guard the inner self. Carl Jung called this process the shadow, and the shadow Well, it's a part of you that you may not even fully know, but it's there, quiet, hidden, and it governs your feelings, your reactions, your deepest discomfort. When someone enters your home, you're not just opening a physical door. You're unconsciously letting them into a space where your energy is at its purest, but also at its most vulnerable. And that's exactly where the shadow begins to act. The shadow contains everything you've suppressed for some reason. Aspects of your personality you had to hide. Old fears, unresolved memories, unspoken wounds. Imagine this. Someone rings the bell. You sit down together, start talking, and instead of relaxing, you feel uneasy inside. A strange discomfort rises up, and sometimes you can't even explain why. The truth is, the presence of that person, their voice, their way of being, might unconsciously touch a blind spot in your psyche. Something you haven't yet dared to look at. Something that lives in the shadow. That's why Jung said, what you do not bring into consciousness will appear in your life as fate. And sometimes that fate manifests as social discomfort, a seemingly harmless visit that suddenly stirs up irritation, a sense of invasion, an almost physical urge to ask the person to leave. It's not arrogance. It's your unconscious trying to protect your inner integrity. And there's more. The shadow doesn't just contain darkness. It also holds hidden potential, abilities, talents, and truths you haven't yet had the courage to embrace. The more you live on the surface, adapt, stay polite, force social interactions, the less room your soul has to breathe. So, if you feel the need to be alone, if the thought of visitors overwhelms you, your shadow might be saying, hey, listen, you need silence, you need space, you need yourself. And hearing that is an act of courage. Do you know that feeling of relief when you finally come home after a long day? The door closes, you take off your shoes, take a deep breath, and you just are. In Jungian psychology, the home is not just a physical place. It's a symbol of the soul. It reflects your inner state. And when someone enters that space, they are not just stepping into your living room. They are entering sacred territory. Jung believed that symbols speak more about us than words ever could. And the house is one of the most powerful symbols of the psyche. It represents the self, the center of our being, where everything finds balance, where healing happens. Each room symbolizes an aspect of your personality. The bedroom, your intimacy. The living room, your social mask. The kitchen, your emotional nourishment. The basement, the unconscious. The attic, your higher thoughts. And the front door. It is the boundary between you and the other. When someone crosses that threshold, your unconscious senses something from the outside is entering. It's not just a physical presence. It's a foreign energy filled with thoughts, stories, tensions. And if you are a sensitive, introverted person, or if you're on the path of individuation, the process of becoming your true self, this can be extremely exhausting. For Jung, the house was not a wall of defense against the world. It was an inner mirror. If you feel at peace in your home, then something inside you is also in order. But if you feel that visits disturb your calm, change the atmosphere, destroy the silence, then perhaps it is your unconscious whispering to you, this soul is still under construction. I'm not ready to open all the doors, and that's perfectly okay. Protecting your home also means protecting yourself. In-depth psychology, respecting your boundaries, is a central step toward healing and integration. So, if you've ever felt guilty for not wanting to receive visitors, for preferring to be alone, now you know you're not isolating yourself. You're honoring the temple where your soul resides. Have you ever put on a polite smile when deep down you just wanted to be quiet? Made coffee, engaged in small talk, acted friendly while secretly thinking, when is this visit going to end? It sounds harsh, doesn't it? You feel ungrateful, heartless. But don't worry. Carl Jung helps us understand what's happening within us. Jung called it the persona, the mask we wear to show ourselves to the world. It is the social role, the version of us that adapts to work, to family, to relationships, even to a visit. The persona isn't false, but it is limited. It's not your whole soul, just a fragment, usually the most socially acceptable one. The problem begins when you have to wear this mask in your own home, where you should be able to be your true self. For people with a particularly strong persona, and this includes many introverted, sensitive, observant individuals, a visit can be extremely draining. Suddenly, you have to perform. Choose your words. Control your facial expressions. Keep track of the length of the conversation. Think about the dishes in the sink, the light being too bright or too dim. All of that consumes psychic energy, a lot of it. Jung said, the persona is necessary. It helps us function in society. But when we mistake the persona for our true self, the soul begins to cry out. Perhaps that's why you feel such inner resistance to visits. It's not about disliking people. It's about feeling forced to pretend to uphold a socially acceptable image, even when all you really want is peace, to be barefoot in silence, staring out the window. And do you know what's even worse? Many people spend years wearing their persona. Even at home, they welcome guests, make an effort, smile, and are internally completely exhausted, irritated, drained. But here comes a liberating truth grounded in depth psychology. You have the right to be completely yourself in your own space. You are allowed to say no to visits. You are allowed to decline invitations to be unavailable. Because while you're trying to please others, you abandon yourself. There are moments when you just want to be alone, not out of drama or sadness, but because your soul is calling for silence. In such moments, many people feel strange, antisocial. After all, we live in a culture that celebrates those who are constantly around people. Loud, active, present. But Carl Jung saw it differently. For him, the impulse to withdraw was often the beginning of one of life's most important journeys, the path of individuation. Individuation means becoming who you were born to be, not what society expects, not what your parents projected, not the persona you've adopted, but your true self with light and shadow, conscious and unconscious, with your essence and your truth. And this process doesn't happen in noise, but in silence, in retreat, in pause. That's why discomfort with visitors isn't just laziness or emotional instability. It is your soul trying to protect you, keeping you away from distractions, so you can hear what is being whispered deep within you. There is something inside you that wants to surface, but for that, you need time alone. Jung said it clearly. Loneliness does not come from having no people around, but from being unable to express what truly matters to you. And what could be more important than listening to yourself? But how can that happen in the middle of commotion, with a guest who won't leave in conversations that don't touch the soul? The truth is, some phases of life demand conscious isolation, not as an escape, but as immersion. You don't withdraw to disappear. You withdraw to return fully, clearer, stronger, more yourself, while the outside world demands your attention. Parties, social obligations, presence. Your inner world asks for something else. Stay a moment longer. Don't open the door yet. Take care of yourself first. Maybe you've already felt it while listening. That strange feeling, almost like relief. That quiet, deep calm when someone finally puts words to something. you've felt for a long time but never could explain. And yes, believe it, this discomfort with visitors, this almost physical unease you've long seen as a personal flaw, is actually a reflection of something much deeper. If Carl Jung was sitting next to you now with his calm, penetrating gaze, he might say, "You are not wrong for wanting to be alone. You are simply listening to the voice of your soul, and that is rare." So let me now share with you 6 deep, true human insights from Jungian psychology about people who prefer to be alone, especially in their own home. First, you are probably more sensitive to the energy of spaces than you realize. Jung said, "The unconscious perceives what the conscious mind misses," and some people are very attuned to the psychic field of others. The voice, the gaze, the silence, the unspoken tensions, all of that affects you. When someone enters your home, they bring not only their body, but also energy, unresolved emotions, stories, and you feel that as heaviness, as inner restlessness, and it is exhausting. Second, your psyche needs space. Jung saw introversion as a natural necessity to bring order to the soul. Time alone in silence helps your mind realign. But a single visit can disrupt this fragile balance. What others see as laziness is, in truth, your system gasping for air. Third, constant social interaction can alienate you from yourself. Jung said that the true self can only emerge in inner stillness. Polite conversations, constant presence, friendliness, all of that distances you from your innermost being. It's not that you dislike people, but to be with others, you often have to set yourself aside. Fourth, the mere presence of another can activate your shadow. The shadow, Jung's term for everything we have suppressed, memories, traumas, unwanted aspects of our personality. Sometimes, all it takes is a casual remark from a visitor, and suddenly you feel restless or irritated. It's not always about the person. It's about what they trigger in you, a part of your psyche that has not yet been integrated. Fifth, this withdrawal you sometimes feel may be the beginning of something sacred, your process of individuation. Jung said that individuation means becoming who you truly are, and that path begins the moment you stop trying to please the world and start listening to yourself. When you realize you need time, silence, distance, not to escape life, but to engage with it more deeply and honestly. And finally, the 6th truth. You are finally learning to listen to yourself. You learn to say no without guilt, to close the door without a bad conscience, to respect your boundaries without feeling rude. Because every time you're kind when you don't want to be, every smile, every gesture you give without the energy to back it, you abandon yourself to fit into someone else's world. And you've realized you can't live like that anymore. It's time to honor your soul. Picture an old man with a long white beard holding a lantern in his hand, walking alone through the dark night on a quiet path. This is the classic image of the hermit, an ancient figure with deep meaning in Jungian psychology. Jung said, "The hermit is an archetype, a primordial image, a universal energy that lives in each of us, even if we don't always recognize or embody it." But what does this have to do with you? Your desire not to receive visitors and to be alone at home? A lot. The hermit symbolizes the inner call for withdrawal, for wisdom, and self-knowledge. It's the impulse that drives you to close the door and turn off your phone, not to escape, but to hear what is going on inside of you. The hermit lives in silence because he knows only in stillness does the brightest light appear. This archetype doesn't represent empty, loneliness, or pathological isolation, but the courage to look inward to face one's own shadows, doubts, fears, and in doing so, to discover one's own inner light. No one else can give you this light. Only you can find it. And to do so, the hermit needs a sacred space. Often that is your own home, your retreat. If you feel that almost irresistible desire not to host guests, to remain in quiet, then it may be your inner hermit calling. He asks you to slow down, not to lose yourself in the noise of the outer world, but to reconnect with your core being. Jung believed that answering this call is essential to mental and emotional health. And you know what? Following the path of the hermit is also an act of resistance against the frantic pace of the world, against superficial relationships, against the constant pressure to be available and social. It is an act of self-love, of soul care. So the next time someone asks you why you prefer to be alone or don't want visitors, remember the hermit within you. He stands there with his lantern showing you true light is born only after you've entered your own darkness, and it is completely okay to need silence to find yourself again. Have you ever noticed how powerful deep solitude can be when it is embraced? It's not just about being alone, but what you do with that solitude. For Jung, the hermit was not a sad figure, not a social failure. He is a guardian of inner wisdom. When you follow the hermit's call, your solitude begins to transform into a journey of growth. In that space, you find answers that the noise of the world has drowned out. There you allow yourself to feel, to think, to reflect without rush, and your soul begins to heal. You learn to recognize patterns, integrate your shadows, and discover parts of yourself that have long been hidden. And more than that, you begin to develop a quiet strength and inner confidence that doesn't rely on external validation. For many, this path is challenging because the world out there celebrates constant doing, networking, social activity. But the hermit reminds us to truly be there for the world, you must first be there for yourself. That is the wisdom of solitude. So, if you decline a visit, if you prefer to be alone, you are not closing yourself off. You are preparing inwardly to meet others later in a more authentic and deeply connected way. First with yourself and then with others. The hermit invites you to this deep transformation. And if you feel that inner call, then you are on the right path. Now that you've come to know the hermit within you, one important question arises. How do you find the balance between the desire for solitude and the need for connection? Jung taught that a healthy life does not mean denying the social or completely isolating yourself, but rather establishing a conscious dialogue between both aspects. The hermit calls for silence, withdrawal, introspection. The outer world demands engagement, activity, participation. The art lies in respecting your boundaries without shutting yourself off completely, and in not forcing yourself into social interactions when you are not internally ready. It is a daily practice of listening and of communicating clearly. You can create rituals that protect your quiet time, such as reading time, a walk alone, or a morning routine just for you. At the same time, you can choose intentional moments to connect with people who truly nourish you and who respect your space. This balance isn't easy at first, but it is liberating. And most importantly, you don't have to justify it. You owe no explanation to anyone except yourself. Society may not understand it, but your soul knows what it needs. And Jung said, individuation means becoming true to yourself even when the world demands otherwise. So allow yourself this path. Honor the hermit within you, and at the same time, cultivate genuine connections that nourish your soul instead of depleting it. Then loneliness no longer becomes a burden, but a sacred space for renewal. We know holding this balance isn't easy. The world is loud, full of expectations, and an inner voice sometimes judges you for wanting to be alone. But respecting your boundaries is not selfishness. It is an act of deep self-love and care. First, learn to recognize your inner signals. Is your body tired? Your mind scattered? Your mood irritable? These are signs that your system needs a break. When you notice this, allow yourself to slow down, even if it means canceling plans or turning off your phone. Second, communicate clearly. You don't have to justify or explain everything. A simple, "I'm staying home today. I need time for myself" is enough. People who love you will understand. And those who don't, that's another story. Third, create a sacred space. It could be a cozy spot in your home, a favorite place in the park, a morning routine just for yourself. There you connect with your innermost being. There your inner hermit feels safe. And finally, be gentle with yourself. Don't expect to always function or be socially present all the time. You're allowed to just be with yourself. Honoring your longing for solitude means honoring your soul. It's the path to becoming whole, just as Carl Jung taught. Perhaps now, at the end of this journey, you feel something has been touched within you, something deep and true. And that is the great beauty of Jung's work, the uniqueness of every soul. There is no right or wrong way to be. There is only your way. And if your way means staying home, away from visitors and noise, that does not make you strange or less lovable. Jung reminds us that individuation, the process of becoming whole, also means embracing all parts of ourselves, even those that society doesn't always value. So, when you respect your longing for retreat, you are honoring an essential part of your soul. You don't need to fit into external molds to be happy. Your home, your silence, your solitude. These are sacred spaces where your soul renews itself and grows. There, in that intimate space, you will find the strength to meet the world in your own way, with authenticity and inner peace. If you take away just one insight today, let it be this: your way of being in the world is valid. Your love of silence is a legitimate expression of your soul, and it deserves respect. Above all, from yourself. We've reached the end of this journey, but in truth, it's only just beginning for you. Together, we've explored the 6 truths of Carl Jung, met the archetype of the hermit, and discovered how solitude can become a source of deep wisdom. Now, I invite you to look inward with gentleness. Recognize that your desire to be alone is not a weakness, but a reflection of a deep inner connection. That your boundaries are not walls of selfishness, but acts of true self-care. And that right there, in the silence of your own space, you hold the possibility to bloom each day, becoming a little more your true self. And finally, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like this video, and share it with someone who might relate. Your support helps me create more content like this, and I truly appreciate every one of you.